And away we go. 3 green check marks across the board, 15 eyes on us to start the show. Let's rock and roll. Broncos country, what's going on? It's Wednesday night, April 2nd. Congratulations, you survived April Fools, folks. We are officially out of the April 1st Tuesday shenanigans. It's Wednesday night. It means it's time for another edition of MHI. He's Thomas Hall. I'm Luke Patterson. Tom, how did April Fools treat you? How did the beginning of April treat you, man? It's draft season around here in Broncos country.
Well, I didn't get pranked, so that's good. I'm not a big fan of April Fools, so people try to prank me, but I don't trust anybody anyway. So I usually don't fall for anything. But so far April's been good to me.
You know what's funny is I haven't thought about like doing an April Fool's prank in a long time. Probably since I became a parent. Maybe 11 years ago. That stuff's not funny when it happens to you. But when you're a kid, a mischievous kid, I'm curious, Broncos country, give me some of your favorite April Fool's Day pranks. I know Von Miller used to get us all, right? Every single year. Free agent Von Miller, I'm talking about, right? I know a lot of folks are still kind of wondering. Tom, you're one of them. Would Von Miller be a good fit for the Broncos? You can't really pull those same April Fool's shenanigans when you're not signed to the roster, so you didn't see anything from Vonster yesterday. But I could remember being a little kid, and my mom was an RN at the time, and she got off of a shift, and my dad had gotten everything ready for me to get my mom, right? The poor lady, right after she gets done working, she loves a good Oreo cookie. Who doesn't, right? So I had taken all the cream out of that cookie, toothpaste.
No.
Dad helps me get it all packaged up and ready to go. Hey, Mom, had a hard day. Let me get you some glass of cookies or a glass of milk and some cookies, dude. And then boom, she dunked it. And man, she came after me, deservingly so. My dad's a firefighter, so I'm calling him on the phone. I'm crying. Mom's yelling. Man. I'm crying. Dad, Mom's after, and he's laughing. So never forget that April Fool's Day prank. But no, man, it's good to see that the day did come and go. I'll say Taylor Mathis got me a little bit, right? She's like, no more walking bets. I'm like, no more walking bets. This is going to change my life. No, just April Fool's Day, right? So let us know some of your favorite April Fool's Day shenanigans in the chat. It is draft month as we kicked off the top of the show. Wednesday, April 2nd, Tom. You always tell me to live in the moment a little more, and I'm very impatient and it's hard. And I feel like draft month has just snuck up on us. All of a sudden, we're getting these little quotes and tricklings out of the owners' meetings from Coach Sean Payton, from George Payton. They're posturing a little bit. George talking about possibly trading back. Sean's kind of always hinting at maybe going up. What do you make of where we currently stand on Wednesday, April 2nd, coming out of owners' meetings? Because Chad Jensen has a really good article up over at milehighhuddle.com right now, where George Payton is kind of playing coy, so to speak, saying, well, I'll talk to Sean about potentially trading back, maybe the day of. He's a pretty fiery guy. What do you make of Sean Payton and George Payton and their draft philosophy?
It's funny because if he's saying that, then I think, okay, well, then they're probably going to trade up. But that's what no, because I talked to Sean Payton and he's talking about trading up. So maybe they're going to trade back. I don't know what to think. It's that time of the year where it's April Fool's all month. You just don't believe anything out there.
It's BS season, right? And all you got to do is say per source, and suddenly you're an insider, folks. Take it from MHI, where we definitely go to task on those clowns, and I will never stop doing it. David Yonkin, I don't think that George Payton is in charge of telling Sean Payton what to do. Yeah, I don't either. And I think that was pretty much made clear when Sean Payton was traded for by the Broncos, when he was signed and inked to a massive contract by the Walton Penner ownership group. But I got to say, David, I'm pretty tickled with how it's worked between George and Sean. At first glance, I'm kind of thinking there's only room for one Payton here in Denver, Colorado, but it turns out, just flip the letters around a little bit, that both of them are a good team. We talked about it last week a lot, Tom, some of the depth pieces that George has hit on, right? Some of the home runs that he didn't miss on, like Patrick Surtain. I mean, we could potentially see that guy in a Denver Broncos 1970s throwback 4 times a year now.
Nice.
I mean, that'll be pretty cool. We'll talk about some of those rule changes, but George and Sean, I wish I could be a fly on the wall to see how those two react and how they interact with each other, right? And the team, like, because I know Sean's grouchy. I know Sean can get a little spicy with his words. I know he can be a little reactive. Maybe that's why I like him. All right. I see a little bit of myself in Sean Payton, or Sean and me, rather. What do you think of George? George is always happy, seems go with the flow. Do Sean and George ever get into it, Tom? And what does that look like?
I don't know. It seems like a pretty good match. You got the one on both ends of the spectrum. So, they kind of meet in the middle. And so far they've made some pretty decent magic when it comes to the draft anyway. I mean, I can't argue with their draft picks. They've done a very, very good job. So I don't know, man. I'm assuming they probably talk about it. And if there's somebody passionate about one thing, they might get into it a little bit, but for so far, it appears from looking from the outside in that it's a pretty darn good working relationship when it comes to the draft, because the results speak for themselves.
Completely agree. Speaking of results, guys, tune in every Saturday night. We can hang out with my guy DVA and Ron White. Ron will be out this weekend. I think Eric's subbing in. Check out Dylan and Eric this Saturday at 6 p.m. Mountain. Sub Broncos Country, please make sure you hit that like button on the way in, share on all platforms, and please subscribe if you have not done so already. Let's say what's up to some friends in the chat. What's going on, Pearl? Good to see you. David Yonkin, ornery as ever. I see you in there. Mike Thompson. George Payton is just trying to will trading back into existence. He knows that Sean Payton won't let him. Yeah, they're totally different guys, right, Mike? I mean, George loves to trade back when he can, loves to be a dealer, tries to be a swindler. I don't know how much of that he really is. I think George Payton's a pretty honest guy. I think he's got a good assessment of the league, sans Russell Wilson aside, right? I mean, who saw that mess coming? You kind of give him the pass on that, right? I think all is forgiven, at least when it comes to Broncos country, George Payton and the Russell Wilson deal. There's some figures you wish you could have back. There's some free agent signings you wish you could have back, some draftees you wish you could have back. But overall, I think the Broncos are swinging for the fences here. So when George Payton is giving a little quote out, and, I don't think the search is over about the Joker position. Hinting at third down running backs or 3-down running backs. I just, so much of it, it's hard to tell who their guy is so far. They could have multiple guys. Maybe they like a tight end and a running back. Maybe there's a dark horse defensive lineman we're not even looking at. Early mock drafts had the Broncos going defensive back once upon a time, way back in February. I mean, it's all over the board. Dollars to donuts, though. Sean is not trading back. Okay, folks. If anything, Sean is trading up. We know this. Why do we know this? His draft history suggests it. And Sean is not a patient man. He's not. He wants to go get his guy. I think he's paranoid as hell that someone's going to go steal his guy. He can't play it cool, calm, and collected like he did with Bo Nix. You want Ashton Genty, you got to go up and get him. You want Omarion, you got to go get him. Henderson, you got to go get him. Some of these guys are never just going to fall into your lap. You can't go with the same draft philosophy year in and year out, or you're going to get burned. Talk to John Elway about that, right? Yeah. Like, you have to reinvent yourself. I think Sean does a good job at that because of the people he keeps around him, including George.
Yep. Yeah. Well, and you're right. I mean, he brought some of the old guard in, but he went out and got some young faces to help out with a lot of the coaching. So I think you're right. That keeps him, kind of moldable, so to speak, even in his older age. So I think you're right. You hit the nail on the head. He keeps it fresh, which is good. Also, I know you can't hear me on Facebook, but I cannot get this freaking Facebook thing to work. So if you happen to hear and you're out there on Facebook, go to YouTube, go to the other Facebook channel because it's not working.
Yeah, it's weird. We get a green check mark and then we get like an error a little bit later. So hang in there. Get at Mark Zuckerberg, right? Tell that guy to get something fixed here. If it was the other guy's platform, we may actually get a response. Cody W coming in here, $2 over on YouTube. Sources say Denver is drafting someone. Absolutely. We got to get those going. We got to get some satire tweets and stuff going on the draft board, man, because people get so upset too when it comes to scouting profiles, when it comes to arguing about people. I used to be one of them. I've calmed down a little bit as I'm starting to mature, as I'm starting to get older. But when you're passionate about a guy, you're passionate about a guy. If your job is on the line as a regional scout and you're banging on the table for a guy in the 6th round, there's nothing wrong with that. Now, know your time and your place. And I think that's very evident who's in charge in terms of the Broncos draft HQ. It's Sean, and it's only been Sean. It'll ever be Sean as long as Sean Payton is under contract. That's why I'm so curious how he runs his operation. He talks about having a support staff around him. He talks about giving credit to his guys and his gals. Something I really like, maybe people think it's boring. I love it at the end of the draft when George is thanking guys and gals by name that the rest of the public, that you and me may not know, because as you know, Tom, so much damn work goes into this draft process and we don't get to see it all. I just want to see Sean and George argue. I want to see George get mad, because I know what Sean mad looks like. We all know that. Hardly ever get a smile out of that guy, but I don't know. What'd you make of some of the owners' meetings this week? Did you see some of the rules changes? I saw special teams, kickoffs, the uniforms. Yeah. Tell me some of your favorite stories coming out of the owners' meetings.
Well, the rule changes are always interesting, right? Like some of them make sense to me. Some of them don't. Like I know that they're so they were. I get the defensive penalties there. They were trying to make the defensive holding not automatic first down, which is good because the offense has been getting all of the changes to make scoring easier throughout history of the NFL, to really get more touchdowns and more scoring makes people want to watch. And the defense have always kind of got the short end of the stick. So to make that those things happen, I enjoyed, because you got to give the defense something, but some of them don't make sense. Like all the taunting stuff, it's just like I'm so tired of a 15-yard penalty because somebody's excited and does something that is harmless. Really, that kind of stuff bothers me. But I did like for Broncos fans, the new kickoff rule. If the touchback, being even farther, maybe you'll get to see some returns, and Marvin Mims might get some kick returns. So that'll be cool.
Well, speaking of that, do the Broncos have a kicker on the roster right now? Left-footed punter, kicker? I know we were kind of talking when I was heading out of town a couple weeks ago. I mean, there's another hole there in special teams. I think the biggest one for me, and I alluded to it earlier, it was really cool to hear that the Broncos could potentially wear those beautiful 1970 Orange Crush throwbacks again. Those are the best. Listen to me. Those are the best uniform of all time. Any sport ever. And everyone agrees on it. Okay. Like you go to some of these other fan bases and their Twitter accounts, their social medias, and they're like, damn. Like usually we can make fun of the Broncos about a lot of stuff. Those threads aren't one of them. And man, we got to Damari Leach, we got to make those permanent, baby. Just like Gary Leeds Palmer in the 719 is permanently here on MHI and MHH, one of our Mount Rushmore superstars. Hi, MHI. I think Sean runs the show, but George Payton's processing of the draft ultimately syncs with Sean. A match made in football heaven. Go Broncos. I think Sean gets a bad rap for being close-minded, for getting his own way. Talk about having some faith in one George Payton. I don't know if he met George before the two worked together in Denver. I don't know if they've had any dealings, if they crossed each other. I'm sure Sean vetted him, right? It sat down at the table, wanted to hear what George had to offer, but man, what an opportunity Sean gave George. He allowed George, because I think that was ultimately Sean's decision when he got here. You know what? I'm going to pick my own manager, or let's see what this George guy has to offer. Maybe he can potentially get a little more bang for our buck in the latter rounds of the draft.
Well, and you also have to understand too, there's new ownership, before the ownership was settled. It was, there was John Elway was trying to run the show and do everything. And they had an ownership group, so to speak, that was kind of out of sight, out of mind, not really doing anything. So you have to have that person to kind of give you a reality check once in a while. And that wasn't happening. So now you've got Sean Payton and George Payton maybe doing that along with ownership group. I know they stay out of that operations a little bit, but bring some stability, bring some more, common sense maybe, and some more leadership to the whole organization, which kind of makes everything work together better. So there's that too to consider. You've got all those pieces that fell into place, and now you see that the Broncos are starting to draft better. They're starting to bring in free agents better. They're starting to win again. So all those things are kind of coming together at the same time. So I think everything's working together well so far.
I agree. And, the Broncos are hosting a young guy, Iowa running back today, Caleb Johnson, officially in the Mile High City working out. So maybe you pick a couple running backs, right? I mean, that running back room, you need to improve it. And then maybe you get an undrafted guy. I mean, you're going to see these sorts of things come up. Gary, thank you so much for the super chat. We really, really appreciate you. Awesome to catch you on a live show, man. It's been a minute. Hope you and your family are doing well, and hope you guys are off to a great start with your spring. Where are you at? What's the weather look like? Because here in the Mile High City, it's okay. It feels like the fall right now. It's about 50 degrees. We're about to get dumped on this weekend, Tom. It's that old man heart attack snow, right?
Oh, no.
It just absolutely breaks every branch on our new green trees and takes out fences and stuff like that. It's funny, man, when people come to Colorado and they haven't been in Colorado, especially in April. I tell them it's our snowiest month. Look it up. I mean, it's absolutely crazy. The skiing, the snowboarding, it's going to be awesome. So hang in there a little bit longer. David, circling back around. Appreciate you, David. Thank you for the super, man. Really helps us keep the lights on. David's surprised on how well Peyton and Peyton are working together, because when Sean got hired, we all said George was getting the axe. That's exactly it, man. And we all didn't know what the hell we were talking about. And I was leading that crowd. We all were. And that's why I like to poke fun at the folks that get so mad about the draft, right? And get so up in arms about this and up in arms about that. I mean, we've all been wrong, and I love to use myself more than anybody, right, for missing on prospects. And I keep a journal, man, of the drafts that I've covered, and I haven't been covering it as well as I should this year. I haven't been able to scout in a couple seasons, but some of my biggest misses, man, I mean, I could remember Drew Lock, man. I was driving the Drew Lock bus. I was so afraid, Tom, that the Broncos were going to miss out on Drew Lock. I wanted them to get him in the first.
Yeah.
Can you believe that? I wanted a first round bust to, just follow Paxton Lynch out of town and Drew Lock, man. I mean, there are a ton. Dalton Reisner didn't quite work out. I know we wish things were better. I think Big Cat's still playing in the league with Minnesota. I mean, so many misses, right? And we love to talk about it. And I love to talk about the people I hit on. And I'll brag for a minute. I can remember a time in this city, in this market, in this publication, when there were people saying Patrick Surtain, stay away from him. Go get Caleb Farley, everybody. Cornerback who's completely washed up. I don't even know if he's playing anymore. Might be with the Titans. Who knows? There were also the folks, go get Justin Fields, can't miss prospect, right? Trey Lance, can't miss prospect. I liked Zach Wilson once upon a time quite a bit because I saw the big arm at the pro day on TV, right? I mean, it's so damn hard to judge these prospects, Tom. I heard Mark Schlereth say something on the radio today, so I want to give him credit, man, because the guy will forget more football than I'll ever remember or know. But he said something about Shadur Sanders being scouted, and I think one of the Hasselbeck brothers went after Shadur a little bit in his scouting profile, and they compared him to a Kirk Cousins or an Andy Dalton. And I'm like, if you're taking those as slights, I mean, both men are still in the league last I checked. Both men, their bank accounts are bigger than mine. It's just kind of interesting, though. Mark Schlereth had said, how quick can you get the ball out and how accurate are you? I can tell a lot in one game based on those two things. Not to oversimplify it, but I think there's something to be said for that, Tom, and the eye test a little bit instead of all these metrics, right? And like Stick went on to say, when's the last time you seen somebody have to broad jump in the NFL? The smart ass in me went to Saquon Barkley, right? When you saw him hurdle that dude. Other than that comes around once every 10 years?
Yeah, I know. And the guy that has the world record for the longest broad jump, Byron Jones. He got drafted in the first round. Everybody thought he was so incredible. When I saw him on tape, I thought he was okay. I didn't think he was going to be a great player, and he ended up being an okay player, and that's it. So, yeah, I mean, the world record broad jumper didn't really amount to a whole lot in the NFL.
String guy coming in here. Yeah, people can name call if you're not right. Here's the other side to that, String, and I've been on the other side where I'm not calling names, but you put so much work into it that you almost feel attached. And I get attached to players, right? Like, who doesn't? Like, I've got favorites. I'm a human being too, so I will never fault someone for showing passion, right, about their work. And that's one of the reasons I like working with you so much, man, because none of this is personal. This is all sports, man. And we should all be able to get after each other and leave it here in the arena. And I know the boys in the morning do a good job at that. So hang in there. Hang in there. Yeah, there's some troublemakers. Tell them Luke Patterson and Thomas Hall said hello. Nick, man.
Here's the thing, though, Luke. You can be passionate about your guy and leading up to the draft and even maybe the first year, but after you've seen them play and they're obviously terrible and not going to cut it, don't keep doubling down over and over about how great they're going to be. That's what really gets me. Or the whole Justin Fields versus Pat Surtain. You watched both of them on the field. You knew Justin Fields wasn't it. You knew Patrick Surtain was, and there were still people in the media saying, nope, Justin Fields should have been the draft pick, even though they've seen them in the NFL playing. That is when I draw the line. Be passionate, but don't be ridiculous.
Don't be blind and ignorant.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's kind of where we're at. Man, Nick Kendall and I, when we started the show years ago on Saturdays, we would have these knockdown, drag out brawls, just yelling at each other about these different prospects, man, because I've never met a linebacker or a running back that I didn't like, and Nick's never met an Iowa Hawkeye that he's never liked. So we were destined to run into some problems. But no, that's you are exactly right, and I think that we all deserve a little credit, the ones deservingly so who should get the credit. You could change your mind, right? Like, I'm sitting here, I'm like, damn, Trevor Siemian, I thought he was going to be the next guy when they whooped the Cowboys in like week 3, right? Man, we found him. Trevor Siemian, he's our guy. Wrong, dude. Not only was he not our guy, but you're seeing ghosts there at the end. It's okay to change your mind. Don't double down. Don't triple down. I can remember Nick and I specifically arguing about Micah Parsons, right? And we're both right. And I'm going to give Nick credit on this, and I'm going to give myself credit on this. Nick's like, man, I don't know. Character concerns. And I'm like, character concerns. This isn't the Boy Scouts. The guy can play any position on the defensive field pretty much. You got to go get him. Well, he gets drafted. I'm taking my victory laps at Nick Kendall, sitting there like, man, wouldn't you know? Micah Parsons, what a dog. Well, look at Micah Parsons. He's crazy. He's a distraction. He's not helping things down there in Dallas. So 2 things could be true at the same time. Nick was right. There are character concerns with Micah Parsons, and you can't overlook them. Maybe he was just born to be a Cowboy. Hard to say. David Youngkin circling back around. Appreciate you, David. No matter no matter who the Broncos pick at 20, I'm good with it, because the Broncos have had some good drafts under their belt. Until they screw it up, then we'll have to worry. Here's the thing, David. I told you guys on MHI, and we're going to be able to do it again this year, Tom, the way that the schedule works out. We're the final show before the draft starts, right?
Ooh,
so yeah, so
right
it's going to be really exciting. And I said last year, as long as the Broncos take a first-round quarterback, I'll be happy. Even if it wasn't a guy I liked. Michael Penix, wasn't high on him. Bo Nix, was not high on Bo Nix. I was curious, but he was at the bottom of my list, Tom, as you well know. I think you had some concerns initially about Bo Nix too. David, Tom, Broncos country, I'm going to be really upset if the Broncos go safety, if they go corner, if they go linebacker here at 20, or if they trade up, because it's needed, but at this time in 2025, when you already made the playoffs the season prior with a rookie QB, no, we have to load up this offense. The league is built on it. You can talk to me all you want about the Eagles defense. Their offense wasn't bad either.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, I'm with David. I'm not really into it this year. Like, I think I said this last week. It's just too overkill. Everybody's doing a mock draft. Everybody's scouting. Everybody's an expert on scouting. I feel like it's overkill, and it actually has got me to the point where, I mean, I used to, when I was a kid, I would get out all the draft magazines and I would like try, writing up mock drafts. And I did that for years. And now there's so much everywhere. Everyone can be a GM in 5 seconds going to the mock draft simulators It's
or
just, I'm
fire up the Xbox and play Madden. You can be a GM there too, right?
Exactly. I feel like this year, I mean, from their last couple drafts and from Peyton's last few drafts, George Paton, that is, I feel pretty confident that they know what they're doing. Before that, I would got a little worried, but I feel confident they know what they're doing. So I'm thinking that the 20th pick is going to be probably somebody that's going to pan out based on their record so far, their track record. So I'm not worried too much.
Let me dig at that and chip away at that just a little bit. Do you believe in your heart of hearts the Broncos will be there at 20?
I do. I don't think they're going to trade up because I think that the big names that they are really going to go after will be gone too early. The Ashton Genties, they'll be gone too early. So I don't feel like there's a need to trade up because it's not going to, unless there's a run on somebody, but there's not enough high caliber quarterbacks to have everybody trying to jump into that first round and push those others down. I think they stand pat and they take a great running back, possibly a wide receiver.
I want to go up one of your aisles of expertise, Tom. I like to tease you as our resident Broncos historian. And if anybody wants to poke fun at that, I challenge them to check out Legends of Mile High podcast. You never know who stopped by that pod. You had some Broncos Ring of Famers. You had some Pro Bowlers. I mean, just a few weeks ago, we had a former Bronco in the house here on this show covering for me. And stay tuned, by the way. I'm told there's some rumors floating around MHI that maybe another Ring of Famer is going to be popping on this show. Let's get the String Guys comment because I see Broncos Country chatting about it here. So I want to reach out to Broncos Country and I want to oblige them just like they oblige us here every Wednesday night. I wish we still had John Elway as part of the ownership. I wanted a Walton Penner ownership group to include John Elway. And Sue's coming right in from what I read about Elway buying into the Broncos. There was a time limit and it expired. Tom, could you clear up some of the history for folks on John Elway ownership rights, why it didn't work out with the Denver Broncos?
Yeah, back in the day, Pat Bowlen offered him a stake. And there was, but
what kind? Filet, sirloin?
A stake in the Broncos. I think it was 8 or 10%. I can't remember the exact numbers. And it would have been, I mean, I'm sure he kicks himself for not doing it. But there was also, you know, the problem at the time was that Ed Kaiser had an argument to have that stake offered to him because he
first
had
right of refusal.
Yeah, so he had sold the team, but he asked to have that as part of the contract. So there was a big lawsuit. I don't know the reason why Elway didn't jump on it. I think maybe because of the lawsuit and all this stuff was going on, he just kind of stepped back, but he never got the opportunity again. So when Pat Bowlen turned it over to the trust, there was no opportunity for him unless he could have got into a bigger group like the Walter Penner group and bought into it. But there was just that was the only opportunity. He missed it, and the rest is history. Because had he been able to get into it back then, man, he's rich now, but he would have been super rich when they sold the team. But that's unfortunately that's kind of how it went down. And whoever said that it expired is right. He didn't take the opportunity, and then it expired, and it was all over.
Yeah, no, love that guy. It's so funny. You know, John's always going to hold a special place in Broncos Country's heart, right? Right at the top. I mean, he's the Duke, for Christ's sakes. He's Elmwood to his friends, right? I mean, like, he is the guy. And I saw him on social media yesterday. I think he was doing one of those, like, would you rather kind of a things with receivers. And, you know, there was a Jerry Rice or Shannon Sharp kind of a thing. And he's like, oh, we'll kind of wonder what it'd be like to throw to Jerry Rice. That kind of sounds neat, kind of a thing, you know? So it's one of those either ors. And it was good to see John. I think John's happy. I'm super pumped with the Walton Penner ownership group because they're all about bringing alumni and people back to the building. And that's something that the Bowlen family really prided themselves on. I love that. I think that sometimes relationships go sour, and maybe we all need to take some time apart before you can rekindle things and get back together. I'm hearing some rumors, just some rumors here in the Mile High City, that the 10-year anniversary for Super Bowl 50 this upcoming season is supposed to be big here in Denver, Colorado. Yeah, you've got the boys coming back, the no-fly zone. We're talking Derek Wolfe, TJ Ward, all right? We're talking that nasty DeMarcus Ware, Von Miller defense. the sheriff, of course, on offense. And I think the Walton Penner ownership group recognize how important it is to get these guys back and continue the legacy. I mean, I want to see Bo Nix in the same room as Peyton Manning. Who doesn't, right? I want to see a young Jonah Ellis and Nick Bonito rapping with DeMarcus Ware and Von Miller. So I don't know. Pretty exciting things coming down the pike here in the Mile High City. Judson Cake, I'm no expert, but being off work the last few weeks has allowed me to watch 15 hours of tape most days, and I absolutely love it. Judson, when I saw your comment in here, I absolutely had to pull it up because I'm so happy for you. I'm so excited. My time is just absolutely killer right now with work and everything else, so I haven't been able to watch a ton of film, but I would really suggest you keep doing what you're doing, man. Grab a pen, grab some notes, and fire away, and then go check your player out in the preseason. Go check out the guys that you really liked. Go check out the guys you didn't like. That's how it should start. You shouldn't have to go off of anybody else's opinion but yours, and I would really try to empower people to do that. Now, you can go down the rabbit hole of check out this guy, check out that guy, check out this gal, this sort of thing. And you will, and you'll get reading material and you'll learn. But I think so many times, Tom, we overcomplicate this scouting thing. We overcomplicate this football thing. It's hard. It's the best sport in all of professional sports, in my opinion. But I think sometimes folks are intimidated to evaluate players. I think folks are intimidated to go to these scouting events and scout these players because it's well, I don't necessarily know anybody there. And what if somebody attacks my work, or what if my work is never seen? It all starts with reps, man. And This life is so short. So super pumped that folks are out there, Judson Cake being one of them, doing your own homework, man. Kudos.
And the one thing that I've learned, I've been around and I've had a few jobs and I've tried new things. I've always gone into jobs thinking, okay, there's people that are way better at this than I am. And I'm going to be like the worst one of the bunch. And come to find out, most people aren't as good as you think of in their head. So go watch the tape. And this is what I would say. These people that say they claim to watch 400 prospects and have all these evaluations, they don't have enough time to watch that many prospects. Watch a few. Don't put in the homework on a few if you have the time to do it, only a few. Don't spread yourself thin and watch a little bit of a bunch because you're going to miss so much stuff. Dive into a few deeply and you're going to get better evaluations.
Yeah, one of the first things I did when I started was just picking players I liked from bowl games. Wow, that player, I really liked watching this player in, the Cotton Bowl, the Tostitos Bowl, whatever it is. Write that name down for next January, So It's exciting, man. And yeah, everybody should do their own thing and don't be afraid to take a stab at it. And if we can help here at MHI, please let us know and get at Tom at Thomas Hall NFL, yours truly at Luke Patterson LP. Immerse yourself in literature and education because I was given multiple books by one Cecil Lammy when I first started scouting, and I still have them. I'm looking right at them as we speak. And take your eye off the ball, Pat Kerwin books, stuff like that. They're definitely going to help.
That's a good one. I have it sitting right over here on the floor.
I
want to finish reading it. It's so funny, but I'm no expert because I'm going to tell you right now, my worst drafting mistake. I mean, it wasn't my mistake, but when I was young, I thought that the Broncos should take Louis Oliver over Steve Atwater back in the day, and that was obviously the dumbest thing that anyone could say in Broncos history. But I loved Steve Atwater. I watched his game when he dropped the interception that would have kept Miami from the undefeated season, probably put Arkansas maybe in the national championship. Dropped the interception. Louis Oliver was more of a playmaker, and I was like, that guy's going to just have more impact in the NFL. But Steve Atwater's in the Hall of Fame. Nobody remembers who Louis Oliver is.
Yeah, the rest is history kind of a thing. GLP circling back around, man. Thank you, Gary. Really, really appreciate the support. Could the Broncos trade back, though? Yeah, this is what Tom and I like to get after each other about because we really don't know. I mean, it's tough when you try to differentiate a complaint from an argument, right? Because I would complain if it came to the Broncos trading back, but there are arguments, there are pros and there are cons. One of those is up at milehighhuddle.com right now, where Broncos general manager George Paton addressed this trade possibility in round one of the draft. Chad wrote an article, and I'm just going to hit a quick piece from it. This is coming from one George Paton, quote, "I don't hit Sean for the trade back until like the day of. laugh, Peyton said. It's just no use. We talk about it as we approach it. We start NFL draft meetings on Wednesday. That's about 8 days of draft meetings, and we'll have group studies. The week of the draft, we'll start hitting those scenarios pretty hard. So one thing I do know about Sean Payton is that he is a man of preparation. I think he's paranoid about his preparation, and he wants to try to have as many scenarios out in front of him as he can. I wish we could go back and look at his notepad or the war room from last year where it says wait on Bo Nix. He'll be there at 11. You know what I mean? Like what was Sean hearing, and then he comes out after the draft and he's like, well, I'm pumping up JJ McCarthy. Ha ha ha. I got you all kind of a thing. I mean, there's gamesmanship there, Gary, but I think Sean would be doing a disservice for the Denver Broncos if he didn't explore the possibility willingly and with open enthusiasm.
And from my perspective, it better be a pretty sweet deal. Look, I am all for having more draft picks because the numbers show the more you have, the more chance you have on hitting. But what the Broncos really need is an impact player on offense. They didn't have that last year. You get that in the first round. So it would have to be a pretty sweet package for them to trade back and not take one of those impact players that they're going to be there in that first round from all these mock drafts and everything showing who's going to be dropping down. There's going to be a player who is going to make a difference if they pan out, of course, because they could get hurt. They could be a bust. You never know, but stay there, get that player that you need to turn that offense into a really dynamic offense. Now, when I say you better sweeten the deal, I saw somebody said that they would trade the Rams, trade back to 26 and get their 90th in the third round pick. If you look at the impact that the probability of selecting an impact player by trading back with that package, I would have hung up the phone as soon as somebody started to mention that sort of draft. It's terrible. They better have at least 2 second rounders thrown in there in order for them to trade back to even 26 in my mind. So it's got to be a sweet deal, but they could definitely do it. Just it better be a nice one.
Yeah, and I don't think the NFL has the luxury of pissing Sean Payton off that way. And what do I mean? Like, you're going to call the Broncos and you think you're going to get one over on Sean with some cheap deal? You're just going to offend him and make him mad, and he's going to try to find a way to come after you some way, somehow. And like you said, he's going to slam the phone down and have a Michael Corleone moment, right? My deal is this, nothing.
Right.
You gotta be willing, you gotta pay to play. And I know everybody hates that phrase, that philosophy, but it's the league. And this is what we do. Chase Wellner, man, another good friend of the show. Happy Gilmore too. Still waiting for it, man. Not sure. I know we talked about it last week if it's gonna be as good as the original, but we will see. One of these days we need an MHI mock draft. Yeah, this is tough. Tom and I were talking about this one, Chase. Every show's a little bit different, and I like to pride myself, and Tom, I know you do too, on this show. We're not big mock guys, if we're being honest. We've both done them. We've both released them. We both go after them. There's some that I like. There's some that I don't like. We'll keep that open. Maybe we'll do some prospects that we really like next week, some potential targets. 3-4 on offense, 3-4 on defense, and we can yell at each other about that for round one because we will be the last show before the draft in a couple of weeks. It'll be a lot of fun, so stay tuned, Chase, and maybe we'll get to that. But yeah, Tom, I don't know, man. There are a million mock drafts. We talk about it all the time. We've got some guys, and there are guys out there, gals out there who do a really good job. One of my really good buddies, Charlie Campbell with Walter Football, man, he's one of the most accurate guys every year. Go back and check his work. It's pretty impressive. Cecil does quite well in his own right, especially with the Broncos and the rest of the league. So it's interesting, man. It's so hard because you have no control over it. So I think it's interesting when we see these big egos attached to the draft who aren't associated with the NFL, right? Like, we're not associated with the NFL. We cover the NFL, but there is no association or bridge when it comes from Mile High Huddle to the NFL. So I think it's important to have independent thought. I think it's important to have these discussions, these debates. But Chase, let me know who you like, man, and we'll give you a shout out because everybody likes somebody. And apparently there are 3 really big running backs in the first round that the Broncos could go after. Or are they still chasing the Joker? You're still looking at a Colston Loveland type? Or you're going to trade up and go get a Tyler Warren? Decisions for one Sean Payton as we sit here on Wednesday, April 2nd. He's Thomas Hall. I'm Luke Patterson. We appreciate you guys rocking and rolling with us. Got a couple more segments, and then we are out. Tom, at the beginning of the show, said I wanted to we like doing movie trivia. We like doing entertainment. We like having fun in the off season on this show. Thoughts and prayers to the Kilmer family, huh? As Val Kilmer, the news was announced that he did pass away earlier today. Val Kilmer, what movies do you think of? What memories do you think of? Because I'm a 90s kid, man. So it's like my whole childhood was Val Kilmer. And we could get into some deep pools. Give me some favorite movies of one Val Kilmer.
Well, I mean, the first thing you always think of is Tombstone, his Doc Holliday. I mean, it's amazing. He didn't get any Oscar buzz for that, which is just, it's a shame. But that's what most people think about great acting. But when I think of Val Kilmer, one of the funniest movies that when I was growing up, I loved, Real Genius. He was playing he's like a goofy college kid, genius, obviously. It's just a goofy movie, but it's hilarious. And then another one is Top Secret. That was his first movie he ever did. And that's like a slapstick comedy kind of, Mel Brooks-ish kind of thing.
Goofy.
He was so good in it. And to watch him go from, Top Secret and then, being a goofy college kid and Real Genius to being like, Iceman and Top Gun and you believed it. It was amazing. And Willow, of course, I'm a big fan of Willow. I love that movie.
Yeah, no, those are some good ones, man. I know for me, like one of the Batman, right? I mean, there are a million Batmans out there, but the Val Kilmer Batman I thought was always really underrated. I liked Val Kilmer as Batman. I mean, how do you go from Val Kilmer to Robert Pattinson here in like 2024? Wasn't that the Twilight guy, the vampire gorilla guy? I mean, give me a break, dude. We're talking about Batman here. So Val Kilmer as Batman was definitely one of my favorites. This one's underrated, and I did see it out there on social media, so I'm glad people. Oh, here we go. Heat was in there. How about The Ghost in the Darkness? Did you ever see that one? That's based on a true story. I think Michael Douglas is in that movie as well. And it's I think Lieutenant Patterson. It was actually his name, the guy that Val Kilmer played. I mean, I challenge folks to go take a look at it. It was about a railroad being built in South Africa, right during or after the apartheids, and all these laborers were being killed by these two lions. They were these man-eating brother lions. So this British officer, Val Kilmer, was brought from the UK to South Africa to make sure that these railroads could be finished. And he teamed up with one Michael Douglas, and it makes for one hell of a movie. Michael Douglas and Val Kilmer against two lions. Sign me up.
I think that's an underrated movie, man. I loved that movie when I watched it, but it wasn't a big hit. Like, it got kind of panned and, didn't do great at the box office from what I understand, but I thought it was a good movie. And I like movies that are based on real events. And now I'm sure they definitely made it seem a lot more than it was. But yeah, Ghost in the Darkness is a good one. I love Heat's a good one too. I mean, the tactics in that movie, if you like gunfights, that scene when they're trying to escape and they're having the gunfight in the middle of this, LA or whatever it was, that's just it's amazing.
Yeah, it's the 90s were truly different, man. They were a different time in general, right? I mean, like, I can come up with some of my, maybe it's just because I grew up in the 90s, but some of my favorite sports movies, some of my favorite events. I mean, it's just thoughts and prayers to the Kilmer family, man. We lost a good one today in one Val Kilmer. Just reacting to that. Let's see here. Wednesday, April 2nd. I want to get to any Broncos news of the day. Oh, how could I forget, Tom? We talked about this a little earlier. What was your reaction? There's a new quarterback in town, Broncos country. How could I forget, especially a Texas Longhorn? It was official today, I guess, going through the email, and then bam, press release. The Broncos did sign former Texas quarterback Sam Ehlinger. Tom, what was your reaction to the news of a new QB joining the Denver coaching room?
Well, I mean, obviously they needed a third QB, at least for training camp, so it makes sense. I don't think I'm going to buy into another one of these, Sean Payton's going to turn him into a great quarterback kind of thing, like he was supposed to do with Zach Wilson. And
Well, wait a second. Well, wait a second. Wait a second. Sean never said he was going to turn him into a great person.
Everybody said that.
Everybody said, okay. Well, if memory
Sean
serves,
Payton, but everybody else.
Yeah, Sean said my goal is to get this man paid. You got the guy paid.
And it's true. He did get a little bit of money to go be a backup in Miami. It's true. It's true.
He took 0 regular season snaps last year, right?
Exactly.
So I don't know, man. If you're Sam Ehlinger, maybe there's something to that. Because you're right, Tom. I mean, like, it's not like they inked the next prodigy to Bo Nix, right? Or Bo's got to be worried. Or, I even kind of laugh at this is competition for Jarrett Stidham. That's where I'm making fun of, right? I'm like, no, it's not. Jarrett Stidham is the grease board robot QB that Sean always wanted. I think Bo's wife and Jarrett's wife are friends. At least that's what I've heard or see on social media. So yeah, I don't know if this former Texas Longhorn, this Ehlinger, I don't know if he's married or what, but you should probably get your wife in touch with Mrs. Nix and Mrs. Stidham if you want to be in with the boys, because they hang out a lot. The interesting part about this, Tom, and I wanted to ask you, it seemed like some of these reports suggested, and you can read about this over at milehighhuddle.com. Zach has an article up. Before Sam put pen to paper, he had other offers. Apparently, he blew off several other teams to come to Sean Payton specifically here in Denver, Colorado. Is there something to that, or is that just a nice feel-good story?
Well, it seems like people want to come to the Mile High City again, which I mean, whether or not it's Sean Payton or they're winning again or whatever it is, or the city is great. I mean, whatever, it's good to feel that way again, because there for a while, it was tough to bring in these, to get people to want to come to the Mile High City because they just weren't winning. So to have folks like Dre Greenlaw, they made a last-ditch effort to keep him in San Francisco, but he chose to come to Denver. So it just tells you the direction that people feel the Broncos are going in. So they think the arrow's pointing up. So do I. So do a lot of other people. So why not jump onto that upward momentum when you can? So I mean that's what I think of when I hear these stories like that. It's not necessarily one thing in particular.
Your timing is perfect and spot on, Tom, because Sean literally said everything you just said and then some at the players or at the owners meetings rather this week. And he was talking not only about Greenlaw, but specifically the Broncos' new all-pro safety Hufanga from the 49ers, right? Broncos stole a couple of those Niners from the Bay. And Sean said, quote, "When you have a young quarterback, players want to be here." And definitely padded up Bo Nix for not his luring some of these players over, but getting the Broncos in a position where they're a competitive football team that's rising to the top. They're not dwelling in the back of the line anymore. They're at the front, right. And they want to be leading that. And we all kind of see some vulnerabilities in Kansas City right now. Now's the time to strike. And if you don't, you're going to get, it's a lot like boxing, a lot like MMA. If you give these guys time to recover, man, you could be the one ended up on the canvas looking at the lights. So I find it really interesting that Sean Payton praises Bo Nix and the Broncos offense a little bit and why Denver's no longer a Passover city. But when he's talking about this all-pro safety that the Broncos got in Hufanga, it's pretty impressive when he's saying, quote, "Well, he's a great communicator. He's super intelligent. His experience, there's a toughness about the way that he plays. Sometimes you can be a second defensive responder and sometimes a first defensive responder, and he appears first a lot on screen." This is an effort guy, and a lot like Dre Greenlaw. One of the reasons I am so damn excited, because this guy is mean, he's nasty, and he wants to get after the AFC West, and that's something Vance Joseph's defense has been missing a little bit. You saw improvements, especially when it came to the Denver pass rushing posse this last year that continued to reset the sacks, but there needs to be an attitude there. And that attitude generally comes from your D-line, your linebackers, and your nasty defensive backs at the safety position.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's going to be I know that the Broncos had a good defense, but I think there's going to be a little bit more toughness or maybe a meanness in them this year that was a little bit lacking last year. I'm not saying that they weren't good and they didn't hit. I'm just saying there's going to be a little more nastiness and the
They didn't have
defense.
an attitude. They didn't have an attitude. They were the strength of the football team, and they definitely rose to another level. But they almost looked like they were surprising themselves every time they did it, right? And now it's like this year, it's like no, you guys are starting on the top, and that's where you belong, and we expect nothing less. So I agree with you. You got to have a presence about you. You've got to. It'd be nice to have a defense that intimidated some offenses again. I mean, I think that's a big part of this game. A lot of people don't want to talk about it. And I think a lot of people think when you say intimidation in the NFL, what do they think of? They think of biceps, visors, and eye black. That's not what I think of at all. What I think of is assignments that are so detail sound that you can't get away from them. Missed assignments that are put to an absolute minimal. Over preparation to the point where your defenders are calling the play. I mean, these sorts of things that I'm describing right now, that's the Super Bowl 50 team of the Broncos defense, right? We talk about Chris Harris Jr. jumping Tom Brady's route all the time in the red zone. He knew that was coming. That was an on-the-fly call. And great players make those big, great impact moments. And I'm hoping to see Vance Joseph's defense officially step up. I can't believe that Vance Joseph is still here, right? We're talking about George Paton and him still being here. And Phil, I see you, man. We're having some issues with Facebook. Go ahead and let me find your chat, and I will throw it up here in the comment section.
I got one right here.
Boom. Since 1971, the Denver Broncos have drafted 20th 4 times. Those picks included Noah Fant, Garrett Bowles, George Foster, and Steve Atwater. Wow. Small world. Steve Atwater at 20. The pressure is on. Phil, man, another historian of Broncos country. How about that, Tom? That's pretty interesting. I was at the Broncos draft party when Noah Fant was drafted, and Garrett Bowles was there. And one of my favorite things, I was right next to Bradley Chubb, and he was like eating a burger, and I'm kind of asking, what do you think? He's like, I'm excited to have a playmaking tight end. Garrett Bowles genuinely didn't know who Noah Fant was. So, like, he's up there, and he's excited, and he's kind of giving this goofy grin, but it's just one of those things I'll never forget. George Foster, that's a name I haven't thought of in years. Broncos offensive tackle, right?
Yeah, he was the guy that pretty much wrecked the cut blocking for the NFL. If you remember right, he's the guy that cut blocked the Cincinnati Bengal and broke his leg right there on Monday Night Football. And then there was a big hubbub about all of that, and they kept trying to outlaw it. And so they made some changes to the cut blocking on, I think, on the backside of the play. So George Foster was a bust, but you know,
his impact was felt forever.
pretty good haul there. You got a Hall of Famer, you got an All-Pro, you got Noah Fant, which I don't consider him a bust. He was fairly productive, but not great. And then you got a bust. So, you know, that's not bad. A 1 out of 4 is a Hall of Famer. It's pretty good.
No, that's not bad. Noah Fant's not a bust.
Yeah, I mean, you look at his stats. He was okay, not great, not a great tight end by any means. But he wasn't horrible. I just didn't like his. After he caught the ball, I just thought he could not get a yard to save his life. But other than that, he's probably not their worst tight end that they drafted.
Yeah, that's true. I can't argue with that. Now, he left a lot to be desired, and it's kind of interesting, Thomas. I pull it up. I actually, in my brain, for whatever reason, I feel like he's had more success in Seattle than he has in Denver. But when you pull up the stats, as you alluded to, that's not necessarily true. Noah Fant, 47 games with 41 starts here in Denver, 10 touchdowns, not bad. It's his 3 years in Seattle. 42 starts with 48 games and 5 touchdowns. Now, availability was a big thing with Noah Fant, but isn't that the story of the life of a Broncos tight end? I mean, the last 15, 20 years, the availability of these guys, whether it was a Jake Budd, a Jeff Hireman, I mean, these Big Ten tight ends, I don't know quite what's with the health. Nick, what's going on, man? Iowa, that's supposed to be tight end you. I'm looking for you, right? And I think of some of the best tight ends that are coming out of there, right? Like George Kittle, Dallas Clark. I mean, it's pretty impressive when you do see some of these colleges that can continue to put prospects out at specific positions every single year. Chad Jensen, $20, man. Appreciate it, Chad. Thanks for all the love. Really, really appreciate all your hard work this offseason, guys. Head on over to milehighhuddle.com. Chad has some articles up and running right now, including Sean Payton's preview of the Broncos' new all-pro safety, including a Broncos potential draft day running back in the Mile High City. Check him out. I'm talking about Iowa. Iowa's running back Johnson is officially in Denver today. And we've got you covered here on Mile High Huddle. We've got a few more minutes left in the show. I want to get to some last few super chats. It could be anything you guys want to talk about. April Fool's pranks, favorite Val Kilmer movie. Who should the Broncos get in free agency? This is the time when we get loose and we open it up on your Wednesday night. Let's see here, Tom. Tom, what's going on in your world right now? How you doing?
Doing good, man. Trying to get the kitchen finished up that I've been remodeling. So getting some cupboards up, cabinets up. It's starting to finally come together, but just so busy. I don't have time to do everything that I want to do, which stinks. I mean, that's the whole issue. You got to have time to do things. And sometimes I'm too busy and I kick myself because I'd rather spend time doing things I love and not things that I don't.
Oh, I know, being an adult, right? And having to do the things that you don't like. There's something about that. And speaking of time, I mean, you said it. Here we are, Wednesday, April 2nd. The draft is weeks away. I mean, this offseason has it's flown by, and I can't believe it. It feels like just days ago we were talking about the Super Bowl with the Chiefs and the Eagles, and since then it's been disaster in Kansas City, right? You've got guys getting arrested. You've got these little rumors coming out that maybe not everything's as peachy and rosy as it seems. The Kansas City Chiefs are going to be fine. I'm not worried. I'm not worried about them. But I'm starting to wonder, maybe it's just paranoia. What's going on in Las Vegas with the Raiders? What do you think the Raiders want to do in the draft? Because we know what the Chargers are probably going to do, right? They went best player available last year. They're trying to make sure that they protect their franchise quarterback. Well, Justin Herbert needs weapons, and we know that Justin Herbert needs weapons because he seemingly has the same ones over and over. They leave, maybe they come back, a Keenan Allen type scenario, but they're kind of spinning their wheels and wasting a lot of good years with Justin Herbert, like the Cincinnati Bengals and Joe, right? Uncle Joey. They're wasting a lot of good years with these quarterbacks. Then I think about the Raiders, and they don't necessarily have a quarterback, Tom. Would you surmise the Raiders are in the market for a first-round quarterback? Because everybody here in Colorado is wondering what's going to happen with Shadur Sanders. Shadur. The news is still starting to settle. Coach Prime signing a new extension with CU, right? It's supposed to be here in Colorado through 2029. Yep. And I got to be honest, Tom, I didn't see it. I thought Coach Prime would come here with his sons, right? Flip the program and then beyond the greener pastures like the Dallas Cowboys. We even talked about it on this show last week when there was some heat that the Browns and the Cowboys were talking about maybe a deal with Dak Prescott. And would that leave the door open for Prime? It seems like Shadur is on his own in the first round this year. Could you see Shadur Sanders with the Las Vegas Raiders, with the Seattle Seahawks? What's a potential landing spot for Shadur Sanders, and what's your opinion of the young CU QB?
I think he's going to go early because quarterbacks go early. I think that the Raiders are going to be missing out, and I really hope that they reach incredibly far for their hope for their next franchise quarterback, and he ends up being a bust. But yeah, I mean, quarterbacks get drafted higher than they should. I don't see why that would be any different this year with Shadur. I mean, there's a few needy teams for QBs. I don't think he's going to get too far out of the top few picks.
Interesting. Yeah, he's all over the board on everyone and their mother's mock. The one thing I'll say about Shadur, and I've watched a lot of Shadur Sanders the last 2 years. You do see improvements, but it's so hard for me because I'm jaded with Pat Shurmur's offense, right? This spread offense. And so many times Shadur gets slack for hanging onto the ball too long. Well, that happens in spread offenses. It's pretty damn natural, actually. So it's tough for me to get a good read on Shadur. I think he's got the talent. I would like that footwork to clean up a lot, but overall, man, it's the mentality for me that I'm concerned the most about. I think Shadur Sanders is very sensitive. I think he has to have things be as ideal as they can be for him to be happy. And I don't know if that's the life of a rookie first-round quarterback. Maybe he needs to pick up the phone and talk to Mr. Caleb Johnson in Chicago and say, hey, what did you do last year so I don't do it? Kind of a thing. It was just Caleb Williams, excuse me. Yeah. Caleb Johnson, Iowa running back. He's here today. Yeah. Call Caleb Williams. Make sure you don't become that guy. And I know Chicago's excited. I hope Shadur does well. It's just some of the theatrics have just kind of worn on me a little bit. So I'm excited for football to happen. I think it makes sense with the Las Vegas Raiders. I really do. I could see a world where the Raiders trade up to go get him. And like you said, Tom, they give up so much that it ultimately sets them back a couple seasons. That would make me very happy. I also said last week that he should be a New York Giant. The last remaining piece that quarterback room is missing, Tom, is Shadur Sanders. I want to see. I'll sign up for HBO. We're going to get on Hard Knocks, and we're doing it with the Giants. And I don't care what the rules are, because I want to see what the room looks like with Russell Wilson, Jameis Winston, and Shadur Sanders. One word, as Shadur would say, legendary.
Yeah, that would be must-see TV for sure.
Oh man, Broncos country, you guys have been rocking and rolling. Thank you for the fun Wednesday night show. It's definitely therapeutic for me, and Tom and I are so excited to bring you these shows every Wednesday night. Your super chats, they mean a lot to us, but your viewership means even more. Your interaction. If you'd like to reach out to us, please do over on X. Tom's at Thomas Hall NFL. Yours truly at Luke Patterson LP. We will be back next Wednesday night at 6 p.m. Mountain. The rumor is Scott is going to be back as well. He's on vacation, scuba diving somewhere in parts unknown. So give thoughts and well wishes to Scott and his safe vacation. And Tom, yeah, we're rocking and rolling, baby. We're going to hit some of our favorite prospects next week. I want to know who you like on offense, who you like on defense. I want you to make the case, because I'm going to come after you if they're not my guys, and you better be ready.
I'll make sure I study up.
That's right. Make sure you study all those mock drafts out there, Tom. You never know, and I'm going to pull one for trivia. Broncos country, you were phenomenal tonight. We really, really appreciate you. Head on over to milehighhuddle.com. Read about the Broncos' newest quarterback from Texas. Has some experience. He must be smart. Sean Payton wanted him here. Extra, read all about it. You could also read about the running back the Broncos hosted today from Iowa. And there's some Sean Payton quotes from ownership meetings. There are some rule changes articles out there, and fun stuff, man. It was a good show. Really, really appreciate you.
Yeah, it was good. It's I'm tired and worn out, but I can get pumped up for these shows. So it's always good to sit here and talk football with you and the rest of Broncos country.
My wife always tells me when I get done with these shows, she's like, you're so much happier after your show. Like, you have so much energy. Like, I'm just some grouchy stick in the mud before the show starts. So Broncos country, I need you guys every Wednesday night. We appreciate you. We'll see you next week. Broncos country, into April. The draft is almost here. This is the way.
This is the way.